We get absolutely bombarded by market headlines every single day. But what if the real story, the one that actually matters, isn't being told? Today, we're going to look past the obvious stuff to find the hidden pressures and, yeah, the opportunities that are really shaping things. Let's dive in. So let me ask you something. When you hear about conflict, especially in a place like the Middle East, what's the very first indicator that pops into your head? For most of us, the answer is, immediate. It's that one big commodity that seems to run everything. But is it giving us the full picture this time around? Yep, you guessed it. Crude oil, it's the go-to. But here's the weird part. The price has just been flat. It's moving sideways, stuck in this tight little range. It seems really calm, almost a little too calm, right? And that kind of stability can often hide what's really building up underneath the surface. So if we really want to understand what's going on, we have got to look beyond the oil barrel. We need to figure out what the real strategic assets are. The ones that tell the story, the headlines are completely missing. And here it is, our first big reveal. The most critical strategic resource in the Middle East right now, it's not oil, it's fresh water. This is the thing that can tell us way more about the real state of the conflict. Just think about this number for a second, 100 million. That is how many people in that region depend completely on desalination plants for their water. We're talking about huge, vulnerable industrial sites. And here's the chain of risk. It's pretty straightforward. Those desalination plants, they need a mind-boggling amount of power. And the power plants that provide it, well, they're always a prime target in any conflict. You take out the power, the water stops flowing. We're not talking about an inconvenience here. We're talking about a potential humanitarian disaster and a massive risk that the sleepy oil market is just not pricing in at all. Okay, so that's the whole situation with water. But that's not the only hidden resource feeling the pressure right now. There's another key asset where a supply shock is literally already happening, even while the rest of the market seems to be asleep. So while crude oil is just sitting there, the price of what's made from crude, we're talking refined petroleum distillates, that's a whole other story. Those prices are going up, and they are going up fast because the supply chain itself is under a direct threat. Let's just walk through what happened. First, a major refinery in Qatar, a huge supplier to Europe, gets attacked. So that's looking like at least a month of disruption. Then, at the same time, China, to protect its own supplies, just banned its exports of these distillates. This is a supply shock happening in real time, right now, and it has almost nothing to do with the price of a single barrel of crude oil. So you have these two massive hidden pressures just building and building. A potential water crisis on one hand and a very real distillate shortage on the other. And yet, what are the financial markets telling us? They're basically saying, hey, everything is fine. Nothing to see here. I mean, just look at the VIX. It's the market's main fear gauge for stocks. It's not just low, it has actually been falling. The market is signaling less fear, not more. Even with all these obvious dangers out there, it's pretty wild. And it's not just stocks either. The bond market, where the really big, serious money plays, it's sending the exact same signal. The MOVE index, which is the VIX for bonds, it's also going down. The message from the big players is clear. Yeah, it's tense, but it's a calm tense. And that really brings us to this quote, which just nails it. All the noise, all the panic and fear that you see in the headlines, it often just hides the real structural changes that are happening behind the scenes. The surface looks calm, but the foundations are shifting. So if the traditional fear gauges are basically lying to us, where should we be looking? Well, the answer is always the same. You follow the money. And right now, there's a really interesting story playing out, a big capital rotation that's starting over in Asia. Okay, so here's the trail of breadcrumbs. First, you see this sharp drop in the South Korean stock market, the KOSP, because retail traders got way too leveraged up. Sure, it bounced back, but, and this is key, that bounce wasn't new money. It was just short sellers cashing out. So that capital had to find a new home. And guess where it went? We saw huge flows pouring right into spot Bitcoin ETFs. And that brings us to Bitcoin. All those wild price swings we've seen recently, that wasn't just random noise. It was a crystal clear signal about what's happening with capital flows and market structure. You just had to know how to read it. All right, so to really get what happened, we need to be on the same page with these two terms. Weak hands, those are the traders who get scared and sell the moment things look bad. Strong hands, they're the long-term folks who see those dips as a golden opportunity to buy. So, that big, scary price drop we saw, that was a textbook shakeout. All the market noise got super loud and it scared the weak hands into selling their coins. And who was there to buy them? The strong hands, who were just waiting for that moment. It was basically a huge transfer of wealth, disguised as pure chaos. And what happened right after that? A massive recovery. Even though we saw that sharp, scary dip down towards 60,000, the price just roared right back up toward its highs. It shows you that the long-term trend is still very much intact. The structure held, and it looks like the worst of that panic is behind us. So I'll just leave you with this one question. As all these hidden pressures keep building up, from water to capital flows, are you going to be the one watching the noisy headlines? Or are you going to look a little deeper at the underlying structure and actually follow where the money is going? Because that is where you'll find the real story.